Okay guys, we are back and we are going to finish up the second half of chapter 5. So now we're dealing with your violations and penalties, okay, that may be imposed upon an agent concerning some of those complaints. First of all, on page 133, we have violations and penalties. Some of the things that can happen: your license, denial of your license application, or refusal to recertify your license for renewal. Down to the bottom, you can have a revocation without prejudice. Over on the next page, they talk about some administrative penalties. And it tells you on page 134, administrative penalty, the commissions uses guidelines that apply to each specific ground for disciplinary actions that may be imposed. The purpose of these disciplinary guidelines is to give notice to licensee of the range of penalties that normally will be imposed for each count or offense during a formal or informal hearing. So, in the gray box, let's look at some of those administrative penalties. Well, of course, your licensee application, your application for licensee could be denied, or renewal of a license could be denied. Letter of reprimand, that's a letter that's placed in your file describing a minor incident. That could be one. Notice of non-compliance, you're out of compliance. That is also considered a minor offense. Let's just say you went to do the investigation and you didn't have your sign up, okay? No sign on the door, you're a real estate agent. That's just not gonna fly, okay? So you got that notice of non-compliance, and the thing about that, it allows the licensee 15 days to correct it. 15 days, 15 days, okay? You guys know I'm just having fun with you. All right, citation. So on top of getting that notice of non-compliance, 15 days to fix it, here's your bill. That is your citation. It can range from $100 to $500. Probation allows the licensee to continue to practice real estate under the guidelines of the FREC by a period of time while completing conditions specified by the FREC, such as complete education courses, attend FREC meetings, and satisfy all of the terms of the penalties. You can have fines that may be up to $5,000 for each violation of Chapter 455 or 475. Suspensions of a license. Suspension is basically a temporary thing, but that can go from up to 10 years, or revocation, which is a permanent situation. So those are some of your administrative penalties. They talk about them in detail on page 135, talking about your notice of non-compliance. Make sure you take care of that within 15 days. Your citation, make sure you pay your bill. That citation can run between $100 to $500, okay? For your citation, you got 30 days to accept or reject that particular allegation that comes across to you. On page 136, more violations for which a citation may be issued, and they're all listed there on the figure 5.3. 137, talking more about the revocation, probation. Here again, they're talking about this in details. Make sure you read over them. I just kind of ran through it and kind of gave you a little clipping of it, but make sure you read over it. Okay, now let's look at some of the civil and criminal penalties on page 137. It says civil penalties may be enforced by the courts if an unlicensed person performs real estate service or a licensee commits fraud in a real estate transaction. Civil suit can be undertaken to recover money paid to licensee or to deny payment of commission to an individual not entitled to the commission. All right, on the next page, criminal penalties. Criminal penalties are issued by criminal court. All imprisonment penalties or fines, except administrative fines, must be obtained in a court of law because the commission lacks the authority to assess certain penalties. If you remember, there's certain authorities, certain powers and duties that the commissioners have and that they don't have. So that's kind of what you're looking at here. Third degree felony on page 138. Here you go, practicing real estate for money without a real estate license. You can be fined for not more than $5,000 and up to 5 years in jail. Your first degree misdemeanor, it tells you when you fail to provide accurate or current rental information for a fee. That's a first degree misdemeanor. You can be fined up to not more than $1,000 or up to 1 year in jail. And then you have the second degree misdemeanor. Criminal violation of Chapter 475 is a misdemeanor of the second degree except as noted earlier. Okay? Then they give you a little example. This is good. For example, false and misleading advertisement is a second degree misdemeanor. Second degree misdemeanor is punishable by a fine of not more than $500 and or by imprisonment for not more than 60 days. Unlicensed practice of real estate. Remember, it is a felony of the third degree for a person to perform real estate for compensation without a real estate license. Don't do it. Now, if in the event that there is a fine placed upon a real estate licensee and you don't have the funds to pay, they have the recovery fund. The state has a recovery fund that you may be able to borrow from that fund. There are some stipulations on that fund. Let's take a look at it. On page 139 in the lovely gray box. I told you guys this gray box is awesome. Linda does a great job here. In the gray box, it tells you, bullet 1, the fund reimburses consumers who are financially injured by a licensee. So it's telling you when you borrow that money from that fund, it's who it's going to, okay? 2, licensee must hold an active license at the time of the alleged act. So your license had to have been active at the time that the event happened. Spouses of the offending licensee, judgment debtor is not eligible for reimbursement. Civil suit was filed, final judgment issued against licensee, and an attempt was made to collect on the judgment. You can borrow for that reason. The claim must be made within 2 years of the alleged act or within 2 years of the discovery of the alleged act. The maximum payment for judgment single transaction is $50,000 or the unsatisfied portion of the judgment claim, whichever is less. The maximum payment based on multiple judgments, more than one transaction against a licensee, is $150,000. So make sure you remember that. Per transaction, it is what? $50,000. Maximum amount per licensee, $150,000. At time of payments from the fund because of misconduct, a license is automatically suspended. So if you borrow money from that fund, your license will automatically be suspended from the time that you borrow from the fund. Punitive damages and interest cannot be reimbursed from the fund. Basically, that fund is dealing with a property. So your punitive damages may be the attorney fees, your court fees, interest. That stuff is not included. You cannot borrow from the fund for those things. And then the last one, a broker who complies with the escrow disbursement order and is later sued may be reimbursed from the fund without penalty. May be reimbursed, okay? So if the broker is doing what the Florida Real Estate Commissioner tells them to do because of the EDO letter, and they end up having to go to court and stuff, they will be reimbursed from that fund because they were going by according to what they were told concerning our Florida Stats 475. On 140, it talks about them in details, your time limit, your money limit, all of that we just kind of covered in that gray box. That's why I like the gray box so much. 141, self-reporting criminal convictions. 455 for Stats Business and Professional Regulation. General provision defines the general legal practice and procedures for the DBPR and the licensees of all professionals, regulation by the DBPR, including real estate. If a person licensed by the DBPR is convicted or found guilty of a crime or enters plea of nolle contendere, or a plea of guilty to a crime, even if court actions was withheld, the licensee must self-report the criminal offense to DBPR. Okay? Guys, that's your chapter 5. Okay? And when we get together, or even if you don't meet with me on that day, or however you do it, okay? If you have more questions about it, email me, www, our website, E2B Train Solution, Bernice at e2btrain.com, and let's see how we can help you. All right.